Hello everybody. I'm making this video as part of Bowel Cancer UK's This is Bowel Cancer campaign, where patients share their stories to help raise awareness of the disease and what it's like to have cancer. So I'm doing this to share what it's like to be told you have cancer. So I'm lucky enough to have been told I have cancer 5 times. That's right, folks, 5 times. And I'm pretty sure there will be more. So the first time around was on the 21st of March 2017. So after a few months of anemia, some tummy pains, diarrhea, general ill health, I had a colonoscopy, which is essentially a very large camera inserted into one's rectum. And yes, it is as horrid as it sounds. After the procedure, my wife and I, Lisa, we were taken into a consulting room, waiting for the doctor to come and give us the results of the colonoscopy and what he'd found, or rather what we hoped was what he hadn't found. So Lisa and I were laughing together as I was telling her how horrible the procedure was and how uncomfortable it had been and how much I farted afterwards. So the doctor appeared at the door of the consulting room, and directly behind him was a nurse that I hadn't seen before or during the procedure. And I saw that she had a green Macmillan emblem clearly shown on her badge. And I thought, a Macmillan badge, a Macmillan badge. So my mind slowly processed the meaning of a Macmillan nurse being with the doctor. A Macmillan nurse. Wait, what? So I remembered all of the TV adverts that I'd seen and remembered that Macmillan only deal with cancer patients. So I thought, I have cancer, surely not. I said to Lisa, indicating towards the nurse, that's not fudging good. But Lisa hadn't seen the badge and she didn't realise what I meant, so she was understandably a bit confused. The doctor sat opposite me and got straight to the point. He said, I found a cause for your anemia. He said, I have to wait for the histology result, but I'm pretty sure it's cancer. Cancer? Did he just say cancer? I can't have cancer, can I? He did say cancer. And the moment I heard those words were a complete shock. I still cannot properly describe what I was feeling at that point. And then it was at that point that the room started to swim and I became a bit lightheaded. And were it not for the quick thinking of Lisa and the Macmillan nurse, I would have probably collapsed on the floor and required admission for some serious head injuries. So the room continued to swirl. And I have absolutely no idea what period time had passed. I think people were talking. I don't recall what they said. My hands were limp in my lap. And I kind of became aware that Lisa's hand was slowly making its way between my body and my arm to take my hand. And she grasped my hand really tight. It was so disorienting. It's like an out-of-body experience. And I kind of became aware that Lisa had started to cry. And she said, what are we going to tell the kids? Anyway, I can't explain the thoughts and the feelings of that moment. And then I came back to the room, really, and the doctor started to explain what some of the treatments are for this kind of cancer. He said, we normally take those tumours out, but first we need to give you a scan, which he's ordered, to see if it has spread. And if it has spread, we may need to do something else before we take it out. Inexplicably, the doctor went on to say that this kind of cancer is happening more and more in younger people, but we don't know why. And to this day, I have no idea why he thought that small nugget of information might be useful for me at that moment. And then he left, just like that. So the Macmillan nurse began to ask about me and Lisa and our kids. I think it's a kind of pattern that medical people seem to fall into when they're dealing with bad news and difficult situations. I'm sure there is some kind of training that's given to do that sort of thing as a bit of a diversionary tactic. Anyway, the nurse explained what happens next. She said there are going to be biopsy reports taken from the tissue samples that were taken during the colonoscopy and a full body CT scan. She gave us her number and told me to call her to chase CT scan and the biopsy reports, as it was important that I should be discussed at the MDT meeting 10 days later on the 31st of March. I had no idea what an MDT was, but it turns out it's a meeting of surgeons, oncologists, radiologists, etc. It's now a really very big and important part of my life. And all the treatment steps are decided in that meeting. She thrust a small booklet into my hand, published by Macmillan, called Understanding Colon Cancer. And that was that. We left. We left the room having been told that I had a potentially fatal disease and that we wouldn't know the plan of treatment for at least 10 days. In fact, we wouldn't know if I would live or die for at least 10 days. We quickly decided that we wouldn't tell the kids until we knew the results of the CT and the biopsy and what the treatment plan was. So, having left the consultation room, Lisa and I stood outside the hospital, blinking in the sunlight of the first day of spring in 2017, having just had our lives flipped upside down and no idea what the future would be. We were woefully underprepared. We lacked information on the next steps, we didn't understand the disease, and most importantly, we were terrified. Lost. Since that day, I've learned a really interesting term, car park trauma. So that's sitting in your car outside a hospital after being told terrible news, trying to process what you've just heard and trying to work out what to do next, who to tell, who not to tell, and facing news of your own mortality.